Hey guys, Brian with Cajun Cardboard coming at you from the great state of Louisiana with another episode of Past and Present. This is episode number 7, and we've got our recurring guest, Coach Jonathan Pixley. Coach, welcome to the show. What's up? We thought it was episode 5 or 6, but it's actually episode 7, so we were off by a couple. What's up? What's going on? We're going to talk about some FanDuel, and then we're going to get cranking with today's topic, which we'll keep it in the holster for a few more minutes. What's up?
Pretty excited. I'm having a little win streak on FanDuel, which, you know, you're obviously set up to lose. So I'm sure I'll have about a 5-week losing streak coming up. 3 days winning. So nothing major. Was really hoping that I don't know why I had it in my head that Jason Tatum and Giannis were both going to get triple doubles yesterday, which would have been a $10 bet that would have won me, I think, like $4,000.
Yeah.
And Tatum was on a roll to get there, and then
he was cooking.
Then he stopped passing altogether, which he should have.
Which he should have.
Yes. Giannis didn't play. So, because I was looking at Giannis, I was like, okay, if he can't really score because he's still hurt.
He's still banged up.
Yeah, the last couple games, he's, a bunch of rebounds, a bunch of assists. So I'm hoping he'll, but anyhow, he didn't play, so it didn't matter.
I love the Giannis logic there because he's not right. And that the knee, it didn't bother me at first. And I was like, they're just doing – it's starting to bother me now because he was probable to play last night. And then pregame, they're like, oh, never mind. So I had a bunch of FanDuel bets that were voided as well. So I don't know.
Him and Middleton, man. I think the Middleton deal is – I know it's
he's supposed to be back next game.
I know.
We've heard that before. We've heard that with our other friend, Brandon Ingram, who's got a bruised toe and has now missed a fourth of 100 games. He's missed 25 games.
And I was listening to Zach Lowe's podcast the other day. And apparently, or maybe it was Windhorst, and they were saying apparently the foot is an issue. Like there's more to it than
Ingram.
Yeah.
So
that's a problem.
It's not going well. I can't name drop. I forgot I can't name drop. But we have a mutual friend who works for the Pelicans now, who is affiliated with ESPN now. Yeah. And he was like, oh, yeah, I saw him 2 weeks ago at the game, and I was like, man, I hadn't seen you forever. I was like, what's the deal with Ingram? Just trying to get some insider info. And he's like, I can't tell you, but he'll be back next game. This was like 9 games ago. And I was like, well, you're not my insider anymore. So we'll leave it at that. No. I was like, I need a new insider because it's 9 games later and it's the same stupid thing. And he's on my fantasy team. And of course, that makes me even more pissed off. I've got some ridiculous play. I've got Markkanen on my bench on my fantasy. This is a fantasy dynasty league, which is pretty big money. Markkanen on my bench, Giannis on my bench, Middleton on my bench, and Ingram on my bench. So that's 4 players you probably want in the games that I can't put in the games, but I'm still tied for first. So I'm still treading water. So we'll see how it goes.
FanDuel, you are struggling, I hear, recently.
I am struggling. Here's the deal. It's like I need to get off this. I've got this tendency to bet really tough odds parlays instead of betting some things that I'm real comfortable on. In fact, I don't think I've ever made a bet that's a even or a minus. So all of my bets are unlikely to occur, but when they do occur, it's a really nice payout. And again, just to reiterate, in case Miss Cajun is watching, my wife, I'm betting like, $3, $5, sometimes $1 on a player to get a triple double. So it's not the end of the world. I'm just trying to string it out because it gives me a reason to watch all the games on League Pass, or at least check in and check up on them. And I'm stringing it out because I'm betting like $1, $3, $5. So it's going to last me hopefully the rest of the season. But inevitably it's going to end in a terrible fire, and I'm not going to win, and all my money's going to be gone, and then you're going to talk me into putting some more in there, and we're going to do it all again. So as long as it's a slow death, I'm dying, it's not affecting me financially outside of FanDuel, I think I'll be okay. I don't think I'm going to get lured in. I think my the addiction that I have is to basketball cards, as most people watch this channel know. It's not to gambling, I assure you. So because I hate losing too much, so it is what it is.
Here are things that I have learned that are go-tos as of right now, and they're kind of. Wait,
is this secret sauce? Is this like a secret formula? Should you? All right, well then, before you say something like that, you have to say, like copyright Jonathan Pixley or like trademark. So this is your secret formula. It's like the Colonel's fried chicken. It's like the secret formula to New Coke and all that crap. You got to kind of protect that. So all you got to do is just say secret formula, patented Jonathan Pixley.
Secret formula, patented, copyrighted, whatever, Jonathan Pixley. So anyhow, it's really not even a formula. It's just a few guys that you can bet on, and I feel like be comfortable with this. Okay.
Yeah.
That I would have never expected. Because remember, a few weeks ago, I shifted to our only betting superstars.
Let me guess some of them. Let me guess some of the guys.
Go ahead.
Sabonis.
Yes.
Jokic.
He wasn't one that I was going to talk about.
Okay. Jokic.
Yeah, I'm talking. This is different than superstars.
Oh, okay. Well, then go with it. Yeah, I ruined it. Okay, then talk. Yeah, tell me your secret formula.
Well, there are like, first of all, you mentioned a while back betting triple doubles, right?
Yeah.
I feel like let's go to Jokic for a second because I have actually shifted to that. I'm going to take $10 a night and bet Jokic as a triple double, right? Just because, dude, I think he's trying to get them now.
Yeah, I do too. I think he's trying not to score 20.
Right.
And he's trying to get a triple-double every single night. We've seen players do that in the past. We saw Westbrook do it.
Right.
We've seen Harden do it. Yeah.
So first of all, we'll stick with this the superstar angle. Tatum right now with Brown out, okay, is a lock for 25. I feel like, okay, but he's also a lock for 4+ assists now. And that's a huge deal because his odds are still very good. You can win money on 4+ assists, sometimes 6. Like yesterday, he had 5.
Yeah,
he had 3 in the first half, but then he got cooking in the second half. Right? He's shooting everything. But I think 4+ assists is a good one. LaMelo Ball to score 20, maybe even 25, because he shoots it 23 to 25 times a game. Right now, he said, "Screw it, I'm just shooting everything." He
takes terrible shots. He is crazy talented, but God, he makes some of the dumbest. Dude, watching him play is really interesting. I think one day he will kind of tame it down, but right now, I don't know if it's coaching issues. Somebody needs to get him under control because he takes some stupid ass shots.
I just think he's looking at it going, "We're terrible. I'm going to try to put up huge numbers. That's it."
I get it, but like put up huge numbers trying to put it on the rim. Dude, some of the shots he takes are really questionable. But then you look at the box score at the end of the game and you're like, dude, he's shooting almost 40% from 3 on some of the worst, ugliest threes ever contested. But his percentages aren't terrible. They're not like,
he's going to make 2 threes a game, by the way. He's at least. That's been a lot because he's going to take 10. Okay. Well, another one that I thought was interesting when RJ Barrett came back, I was like, okay, so who gives, right? Brunson has not given in scoring. And so he's a lock. He's 20. I mean, he's putting up huge numbers. Randall's given a little bit in scoring, but dude, Randall's getting like 15 rebounds a game.
Crushing the glass. Those two guys are playing at an all-star level. Can they both make an all-star team?
I think they can, but Randall, like I very rarely bet anybody for 10 rebounds. Okay. Yeah. I'll bet 8, right? But 10 rebounds, I'm locked every night with Randall. 10.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Another one is while Zion and or Ingram is out, okay, McCollum's going to make 3 threes every night. Every night, dude. It's crazy. Now, he's scoring, but I'm saying like he takes a ton of freaking threes. And so when those guys come back, now here's the one that I bet you're going to be shocked about.
Okay. Jarrett Allen assists.
No, but Jarrett Allen is one of the players.
Yeah.
Jarrett Allen and Mobley to get at least 10 points and 6 to 8 rebounds. Okay. Now, both of them. And I look back and I was like, okay, are they doing this simultaneously? And it's like 5-6 games in a row. They're
big minutes between them.
Yeah. So, and I thought that would never happen because Garland and Mitchell, right? But no, they're putting it up. So you can bank 10 and 6 for both of those guys. And there's bigger money in there than you think with that.
Well, here's the deal. Nobody else is on that team is going to rebound while they're on the floor. Mitchell's not. Garland doesn't. And neither does whoever they decide to play at the 3, whether it's Osman or LeVert or whoever the hell else it is. Nobody's stealing boards away from those guys, and they play big minutes, and they're pretty consistent. And those two guys, believe it or not, are pretty good at staying out of foul trouble.
Yeah. The only other one that I thought I was locked in on while Zion and Ingram were out was Valanciunas, but he fluctuates.
He fluctuates too much. I worry about him.
Yeah,
he'll have monster games, and then the next game, I don't know, but yeah. The real question is, what happens to Valanciunas if Ingram and Zion ever do come back? where does he fit in? Does he finish games, or does he go back to being like 10-10, 10-8? I don't know.
It's all going to depend on can he guard at the end of the game, and that's why he's coming out of games now.
I think it just depends on who the other team puts on the floor at the end of the games.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right? So if he can't guard pick and roll, then
he can't guard pick and roll. It's not like can he guard? It's not like he can or he can't. He can't. So it depends on who the other team puts on the floor. If Jared Allen finishes the game, he plays, and if Mobley is their 5, he does it. It's just that simple.
He's actually better off against a Denver, right? Or against Philadelphia, or against
where he's going to play. Oh, for sure. Yeah. You're getting it then. That's a good thing to look at is who does the other team – does the other team have an indispensable 5 that's going to play 35 minutes and be on the floor at the end of the game in a close game? And then Valanciunas, if he's on the floor, he's getting the rebounds, period. He just is. He's a freaking lumberjack. He's going to get the rebounds. So, all right, cool. So today's topic, we haven't even mentioned it still. I'm horrible at this. We're bad at this. But today's topic is going to be cool. We each have how many stories do you have?
Well, I've got 9 to choose from.
Okay. How about this? We're going to alternate. I've only got 3, so we'll alternate. We're going to do 6 stories for sure. These are NBA stories you may or may never have heard that just piqued our interest, that we just want to chat about and just throw them out there for comments and just for the entertainment and amusement of the people that are watching and listening. And so I've got 3, you've got 9, but we'll alternate 1 each, and I'll let you go first. And then we'll just see where we are on time, and then we'll just kind of go from there. Before we start, did you watch The Breakfast Club?
Yeah. Okay.
Do you remember when Judd Nelson, who was John Bender in the movie, asked the teacher, did you know who – did you raid Barry Manilow's wardrobe?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you raid Barry Manilow's wardrobe? What are you wearing? First of all, what part of Eastern Europe are you from? And secondly, do you have a carrying case, almost like a man purse, somewhere off screen that you're going to carry around today?
No, I have this though.
You're looking. I swear to God,
listen, it's kind of a
little hand carrying case.
Thing,
yeah, a little pouch.
But this is interesting because for Christmas, so I don't buy clothes for myself. I don't know how you are, but I know you buy shoes, but you don't buy clothes necessarily.
Shoes only, right?
Yeah. So my wife dresses me, obviously. Yes. So I got 2 shirts. Both, one is this, and the other one was a blue.
Both medium.
And so I was like, okay, they are pleated, first of all. And then I put them on. I was like, yeah, they're pretty comfortable. I was like, okay, where's the button? There's no button.
Yeah, that's what worries me, and that's where I get worried about you
so I put
and your family.
I wasn't sure how I felt about it the first time I put it on. Then I was pretty sure how I felt about it this morning when I put it on, but it was too late. I was already out the door. So, and I'm glad that you confirmed my issue. So that's good. I'm proud.
Now, here's where I'm going next is I think you cut, I mean, you're going to get in trouble because it's probably an expensive shirt that your wife bought, but I think you cut the sleeves off, leave the collar, and use it on Arms Day when you go work out arms, buys and tries. If you're going to go do buys and tries, I love that look right there. Buys and tries.
That's pleated though. You can't do it.
It's perfect. It's ribbed, actually. I think is what they call that now. But you go wear that at the gym, nobody's going to F with you. You know what I'm saying? They're like, something's off.
I got to take the collar off if I do that.
No, you leave the collar, but you just turn it up. You go up here. In fact, I think we do this whole episode, collars up right here. Nobody messes with you in the gym. You roll in like that, sleeves off on arm day. No one's going to interrupt your workout. Let's just put it that way.
And they're not going to interrupt me because they're too disturbed to speak to me, or they're like, okay, something's off about this guy.
Something's off about this guy. Yeah. Something's off about this guy. All right. First story. You first. Go first.
No. I need you to go first. It actually.
You want me to go?
Yeah, I need
you to go first. Okay. Do you want me to go in order of best to worst?
I need it to be a non-wilt story.
Okay, non-wilt story. Here's my first story. It's not really a story. It's just really a did you know? Have you ever run across an article and we both have just dove into basketball or dived. I don't really know. I'm from Louisiana, but dived or dove into basketball for 96 combined years basically on this planet. And I've never discussed this with you, but you may have run across it. The 1977 NBA draft. And just generally speaking, the draft before it was consolidated into fewer rounds, right? It used to be tons of rounds, like the NFL draft that goes on for days or whatever, and it's a big deal.
It was like 6 rounds.
Okay, well, it used to be 10 rounds.
Yeah.
So in 1977, it was a 10-round draft. And I just kind of want to talk about some of the things that happened in that year, because that's when NBA teams started to really push the envelope, because I think the teams knew that we don't need 10 rounds because there's not 10 rounds worth of talent that would ever be able to help our franchises.
Correct.
Even though I think the ABA was still around.
No, it was done.
Not in 77.
Merger was 76.
76, okay.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why I went to 10 rounds, because they thought, well, we're bringing 2 pro leagues together. We need, we got more teams, expansion. We need to make sure we get whatever the case may be. There was 10 rounds. I'm going to just talk you through some of the things that happened in that 1977 draft, okay? I'd never heard this. Number 1, these are all so shocking, I don't even know really where to start. Number 1, the New Orleans Jazz, our home team, right, in 1977, although I was still in Kentucky, but you were here, drafted a pregnant woman named Lucia Harris, who was a 3-time All-American, not at a big female basketball program, but at Delta State University, okay, which is, I think, up in Cleveland, Mississippi, if I'm not mistaken. Lucia was a 3-time All-American, and she was later inducted into the National Basketball Hall of Fame, so she was a legit player, but she was drafted by the New Orleans Jazz, and she was pregnant at the time. And
what
so
round?
It never worked out. We would have – what?
10th round?
I don't know what round it was. I probably should have done my research on the round. I would assume it was late, maybe non-pregnant. She's a mid-round draft pick, maybe. but as a pregnant lady, she obviously wasn't going to be equipped to go on the court anytime soon. So she didn't even make it to training camp. She was pregnant. Seems selfish, but it is what it is. Same draft. The Kansas City Kings, which were before that, I forget the other Kings, and then they became the Sacramento Kings, drafted Bruce Jenner, who is now allegedly a woman, or is a woman, depending on your political stance and your belief in science and biology, drafted Bruce Jenner just after Bruce Jenner tore up the Olympics, right, and became the greatest athlete in America.
Yep.
So he was drafted in 1977 by the Kansas City Kings as a publicity stunt, just to kind of raise awareness or whatever, with no intention whatsoever of him ever playing basketball on the Kansas City Kings. He was at the top of the world. He won the decathlon and all that stuff. So that was number 2 from the 77 draft. Same 1977 draft, the Boston Celtics drafted a water boy. They selected someone in the draft for the purpose of being their water boy. Now, why that needed to happen in the draft, they couldn't just go hire any random water boy, I don't know. Maybe they were concerned the kid was so good at delivering water and fluids to the players that another team would have drafted him if they didn't go ahead and get him in the draft, but they drafted a water boy. And then lastly, and this is really going to throw you for a loop, the Lakers made 2 selections that were a little bit questionable. Number 1, they drafted the cartoon character Scooby-Doo in the draft. That was their selection. And then they also drafted a wooden chair in the draft, an inanimate object. Yes.
So
a wooden chair.
The draft has been around for how long?
I don't know. I mean, there was those territorial drafts back when Bill Russell and Wilt were going. So there was some sort of draft type process.
Yeah. So my point is, how long has stuff like this happened where you literally are just wasting? I mean, there's no explanation for anything.
I guess they didn't want to draft somebody to pay somebody if they didn't think the person could play on their team. So it just became a matter of publicity and publicity stunts and stuff like that.
How does it get announced? How does it get announced, first of all?
We'll take Scooby-Doo with the 175th selection in the draft
We'll
process.
take this chair.
We'll take this particular wooden chair. Yeah, it was one wooden chair. And that wooden chair is actually now, I think, in the Naismith Hall of Fame. But both Scooby-Doo and the chair were rejected by the league. The other 2, the pregnant lady, Bruce Jenner, and the water boy, fair game. The chair and Scooby-Doo, not good. And that, to me, reeks of bias, almost like an anti-Laker bias.
Because Scooby was sneaky athletic, first of all.
Well, I mean, the first dog in the NBA. It could have been the first fictional dog in the NBA.
For sure.
But how is it that we've never heard of crap like this? I never ran across this in my entire life or heard of anything so crazy. Now, there is one thing that you and I have both heard of, that the Bulls in the same draft that they took Michael, did you know this?
What?
1984 draft, they also selected Carl Lewis.
Oh, I actually have heard that, though.
Yeah, for the young people out there, Carl Lewis really was. I mean, Bruce Jenner was like whatever as an athlete. Nobody did the decathlon, so nobody gave a shit. Right. No, Carl Lewis was legit. Like he was
the fastest guy in the world. Yeah,
the fastest guy in the world and the best long jumper in the world. I mean, he was the real deal. One of the greatest athletes of all time. Again, I can't imagine him trying to dribble a basketball. And I think he was in a celebrity dunk contest, and you could tell just from that he was not a basketball player. But even as late as 1984, Jonathan, we're like now in our NBA prime watching days. I mean, we're both 10 years old. I didn't remember that the Bulls took Carl Lewis in that draft, the same draft that Jordan was selected.
But there wasn't just 2 rounds then, though. I think
no. It was like it was still tons of rounds, like 6 or 7 or something.
I think it was like 6 rounds then.
Yeah.
Because I used to, we've known guys, older guys, like around the state of Louisiana, right? And they're like, "Yeah, I got drafted by so and so and so and so," and you find out, oh yeah, there's freaking 8 rounds back then. Yeah. I mean, like, okay,
yeah.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot from one draft. Whew, I've never heard.
That's my story. That's my story. The 77 draft, and I think that was like the height of it. And then after that, it all kind of tapered down to where people are actually selecting basketball players at that point. So, anyway, go give me your story. Story number 1.
Okay. Well, again, I would think people have heard some of these, but again, I'm just, these are my favorites. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll start with a Kobe Bryant story where, and I think, what we could do is we could tell our stories. And if we want to go back and tell anything else that we think, I think we could finish like honorable mention, but Kobe and Jordan play against each other whenever Jordan is with Washington. Okay. And Jordan goes into LA and Washington wins the game. And Kobe apparently, and according to several sources, did not speak to his teammates.
I heard about this
after that game. Yeah. But because Jordan said on the way off the floor, you can wear the shoes, but you'll never fill them.
Right.
You'll never fill them. And 2 weeks later, they play Washington in Washington, and Kobe gets 55.
Yeah.
And now here's what is not often told is he got 55 on purpose because of the Jordan double nickel in New York. And so he was dead set on, I'm going to get 55 just to show you, I can't just fill them. I'm going to do exactly what you did in New York to show you.
I had never heard that. Okay.
So I thought that was pretty stone cold killer. The fact, like everybody's heard the story, but I hadn't heard the part about he wanted to mimic the double nickel.
I had not heard that part either. I heard the quote, and the quote's ridiculous. I mean, Jordan's got so many epic quotes. So does Bird, but Jordan's got really thoughtful, epic quotes. Yeah. And I'd heard that quote, but I'd never heard that Kobe stopped on 55. That's pretty cool and pretty impressive that he could go do that to such a loaded Wizards team.
I mean, loaded. Yeah. Who was the second best player on that team?
Jared Jeffries? I don't know. I have no clue. But even at that age, Jordan was the best player on that team. That's for sure. Maybe Larry Hughes. Was Larry Hughes on that Wizards team?
Well, it might have been on that team for a year or 6 months or so, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. Larry Hughes played on a lot of teams. Okay. My story number 2. Can I tell one of my Wilt stories now?
Please do. Yeah.
Okay. Wilt once said that. No, I'm not going to tell the 20,000 story. So this is an interesting story. I know you've heard this, and I know I've heard this, but some of the younger viewers out there may never have heard this. Everybody hears about Wilt, running barefoot and out racing Jim Brown at a party at an LA house up in Beverly Hills. Everybody hears about Wilt working out with Arnold Schwarzenegger and curling more weight or benching more than Arnold Schwarzenegger could. Wilt having celebrity boxing, with Muhammad Ali or whatever. There's a million, trillion, zillion Wilt Chamberlain stories. This is my favorite Wilt Chamberlain story because it was about Wilt Chamberlain when he was 16 years old.
Okay.
So he's 16 years old playing at Overbrook High School in Philadelphia. And at the age of 16, he's like, this is not fun for me. This is not a challenge at all. I need to start to prepare myself and start playing against some grown men because I want to be a professional basketball player. So at age 16, and if you've seen clips of Wilt when he was at Overbrook, he was already 7 feet tall, but he was probably about 165 pounds. He was really thin looking and gaunt. Like he looked like an alien that had been dropped down here to play basketball. Now, he moved like a 6'7" guy, but he looked like an alien. So at age 16, he's like, I need to go play against some pros to prepare myself. So he joins a professional basketball league in the high school offseason and plays for two teams, the Pittsburgh Raiders and the Quakertown Fays. Okay, it's just a local, it's a pro league. These guys are getting paid to play basketball. It's not the NBA, but they're playing pro basketball. And he registers, he can't play under the name Wilt Chamberlain, of course, because he'll be ineligible not only for high school, but he'll be ineligible to play at University of Kansas a couple years later or whatever college he decided to choose.
Right.
And of course, he later went on to play at Kansas. So he registers for this pro basketball league, and he has to keep it a secret. So he registers under the name, and I don't know where he got this name, George Marcus. So he registers as George Marcus and goes and plays on these two teams. And so he played 2 seasons in high school of pro basketball while he was in high school.
That's awesome.
And so in his second season in this pro league, and remember, there's no internet, there's no TV, so he can kind of get away with this. But there is still newspaper reporters showing up, and I'll explain to you why they were showing up. In his second season as a 17-year-old in high school, he averaged 40.5 points per game in the regular season, but he averaged, you want to guess what he averaged in the playoffs?
60.
74 points per game in the playoffs as a 17-year-old against other grown professional basketball players, and he averaged 53.9 overall between the two. He was clearly the league's MVP, George Marcus. Articles were written about this guy, George Marcus.
George Marcus.
They had freaking cameras, so pictures were taken of the guy that is allegedly George Marcus. And I don't know. I mean, now there might be a lot of 7-foot black guys in the world, but I can't imagine in the 50s there were very many 7-foot black guys, especially in the Northeast, just like in the Northeast of the United States, who could play basketball. And so it was interesting. So there was a reporter that kind of tracked him down while he was a freshman at Kansas, or it might have been his sophomore year at Kansas. And he questioned him about it. He's like, have you ever played professional basketball? He's like, no, of course not. And so the way the supposed interview might have played out was, hey, Wilt, did you play pro basketball when you were 16? This is a picture. It looks a lot like you. And Wilt says, that's weird. What's the guy in the picture's name? And the guy's like, well, his name was George Marcus. And he's like, no, my name is Wilt Chamberlain. That's not me. And that was the end of it. And the reporter's like, enjoy your spring break. And so that's the story. But even back then, the newspapers did refer to him as George Marcus. And Wilt later even wrote a newspaper article to the newspaper talking about what he's going to do after his pro basketball and high school career were over, what he was going to do, where he was going to play. So he is about as arrogant and challenging of the modern day norms as there ever was. But that George Marcus story, that's like not a fictional story. That actually happened. There's literally articles and there's literally pictures of Wilt Chamberlain disguised as George Marcus playing basketball. So I thought that was interesting.
He had a dual life. Like he and by the way, now he owns more pro basketball records than we thought.
You can add those in there, right? Because those are technically pro basketball records. So that's my story number 2, the Wilt Chamberlain, George Marcus story. But there's all kinds of stuff on the internet if you want to go learn more about the George
That's
Marcus.
Awesome. That's so awesome. Yeah, and most people would not have heard that at all. I mean, that's.
And I'm assuming his mom's driving him to games or what? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess he just shows up at the bus station and they take the bus to the games. He's a 16-year-old kid. But I thought that was hilarious, you know?
Oh, my gosh. I don't know. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to tell another story, just part of the story because most people have heard it, but there's a twist to it at the end, much like the Kobe story I just told. So most people, probably most of our listeners or viewers have heard the Larry Bird playing left-handed in Portland story, right? Where he just decided last game of a road trip, I'm going to play left-handed and see what I can do. He scores 47 points, I think, in like 3 quarters. Okay. And if you go back and watch clips, the overwhelming majority of his shots are actually with his left hand, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he does score a bunch of points with his left hand. But apparently he was asked why he did this. Okay. Before the game, he's the media is like, yeah, tomorrow night I'm probably going to play with my left hand. After the game, he was asked why he did it. And he said, I was saving my right hand for LA. And the reality is he was working on his left hand in the offseason to make it easier for him to score against Michael Cooper.
Oh,
and so he's like, you know what? We play LA next. So we play LA in the finals, of course.
Practice game.
Right. I'm going to work on it right here. Cooper, right. It wasn't just, I'm going to play left-handed.
It wasn't just to embarrass him, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was, but then it wasn't at the same time. So, but when you are bold enough to say, yeah, I'm saving my right hand for LA, like really against a professional basketball team. Like,
he did say, and I saw an interview the other day, it was Cooper, and he was getting interviewed by another former player, and I can't remember who it was, but I know that they asked Cooper that one time Bird was quoted as saying, who was the best person that ever defended you? Yeah. And he said, there's only one person that defended me, and it was Michael Cooper. And Cooper was real flattered about that, and that's kind of what he hung his hat on, was playing defense. But, Bird knew nobody could guard him, but he gave respect to Cooper, and is one of the very few people that Bird actually said, this guy actually guarded me.
Yep.
I've heard amazing stories, of course, about when Rodman was guarding Bird when he was in Detroit.
Yeah.
And Bird was in the post. And I'm sorry, I'm adding a story in here. Bird's in the post, and he's screaming in front of the Detroit bench where Chuck Daly could hear him, and his point, screaming at his point guard, give me the ball, quick. Rodman's on him. He's got a hand around his waist, and he's trying to defend the entry play. And he's like, hurry before they notice that nobody's guarding me. Hurry before they notice that nobody's guarding me. He catches the ball in the post. Of course, he puts his shoulder in Rodman's face. Anyway, shoots a fadeaway, whatever. And then he's like, Chuck, you better get somebody out here to guard me. You're missing a player. There's only 4 players on the floor.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing, and do you have a Bird story to tell?
No, I don't.
Okay. So I'll add this one in. And I took this, and people have heard this before too, but I read the book Drive by, Larry Bird's autobiography. It was published in 1989, I think. So I probably read it a year or two later. So I was probably sophomore, junior in high school, maybe whenever I read it.
Yeah.
And I remember the one thing I took from the book was how pissed off he would get when other teams would guard him with white people, right?
I remember that.
And it was so like he was so insulted by it. He was so aggravated by it. And I started to think that, like, I tried to get myself in that mindset, like, especially in college, but I couldn't even get pissed about it. I was just excited when a white guy would guard me, right?
There's a good chance I'm going to get my numbers.
I'm going to get 30 tonight, right? And so I just remember thinking, God, dog, how disrespectful. Like, he's disrespecting his own race, which is awesome.
He doesn't care.
It's fantastic.
Because he didn't think he was human like the rest of us, right?
Yeah.
He was definitely preordained.
Frank Layden, I think. Frank Layden put some white dude on him. I don't remember, from Utah. And
probably Hansen. Probably Mike Hansen. Was his name Mike Hansen? Bobby Hansen? What was his name?
Bobby Hansen played for Utah. It might have been him.
Yeah.
But I remember Frank Layden tells the story. He's like, he had scored 2 or 3 trips in a row, and then there was a dead ball, and he walks by me and he goes, "Are you effing kidding me, Frank? Are you effing kidding me?" Like,
the relationship he had with opposing coaches. There's you can make 20 stories just about the things that Bird said to opposing coaches.
Yes.
And most of them probably ended up with those coaches not getting pissed off, but laughing about it.
The Xavier McDaniel story where he tells him, "I'm gonna catch it right here and shoot it in your face." But the fact that when he walked off the floor, he was cursing. Like, McDaniel tells the story, he was cursing at himself. Why? Because he left 2 seconds on the clock.
Left 2 seconds on the clock.
Like, oh my God.
I didn't even leave 2 seconds on the clock. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Did you tell your second?
That was my second, the Portland lefty.
Okay. Yeah. Tell one more, because I got a great one to end on. It's as obscure as it gets. I've never heard it. You definitely have never heard it. And it's absolutely baffling and shocking that it even occurred in America in the 20th century.
Okay. So obviously, I'm going to finish with a Michael Jordan story. So everybody's heard the LeBradford Smith story, and hopefully now that didn't actually happen, right? He made it up, right? But
just look. Most of the people watching probably don't know the LeBradford Smith story. I know they probably watched Last Dance. They may have forgot it. So just explain. Yeah, tell them LeBradford. First of all, LeBradford Smith played at U of L, and he was I don't want to say he was a Michael Jordan clone because I don't think he was as tall as Jordan, but he could absolutely fly, had a perfect jump shot, and was kind of primed to be an incredible offensive player in the NBA. He was a really freaking good player at U of L. He was by far the best player on their team, super talented, kind of a shooting guard wing.
Yeah, about 6'3", a little taller, but kind of what you would have thought, like maybe like a Donovan Mitchell kind of would have been.
That's a great comparison. A little bit bigger, but I mean a little bit taller, but great comparison. Great comparison.
So anyhow, LeBradford Smith, they play back then. They play back to backs, and they played the first game in Chicago, and they fly the next day to play against Washington back when they were the Bullets. So LeBradford Smith has a game. B.J. Armstrong tells the story.
The best game of his career.
Yeah, he had like 37 points. Okay. Yeah. And apparently Jordan struggles in the game, and they walk off the court after the game. Bulls win the game, but they walk off the court. And according to Jordan, LeBradford Smith pats him on the butt and says, "Nice game, Mike." Okay, which he didn't even say that LeBradford Smith was being a smartass. He just said, "Nice game, Mike." Okay, so apparently they go get on a plane. Jordan gets on the plane, and he tells John Paxson, he says, "I'm going to have what that kid had in the game tonight. I'm going to have it in the first half." All right. Now, there's a twist to this, too. Okay. So Jordan goes out the next game and literally targets this poor kid. Okay. And just goes at him and at him and at him. Well, he has 36 at the half. So what they leave out of the documentary is, allegedly, he goes into halftime, into the locker room, and is kicking and throwing chairs everywhere because he didn't have 37, because he had 36. Okay.
Just missed it.
Yeah.
FanDuel. If there was a FanDuel bet on it, I'd be pissed. I just missed it by a point. I needed 37 from Jordan in the half.
36. Okay. And then they ask him years later, "Hey, that LeBradford Smith story, tell us about that." He's like, "Never happened. I just made it up." Made up the whole thing. Kid never talked to him. Nothing.
And of course, he passed that bullshit on to Shaq, who made up the story about David Robinson and everything else. Those guys always make up stories to find ways to motivate themselves because winning wasn't enough, so they needed some more. I guess it came so easy to them.
So the story I was going to tell, though, about Jordan is, and you have heard this one, I'm quite certain, but most people, it's actually in the Dream Team book. Okay. Mm-hmm. The first day of practice. Now, keep in mind, the Bulls had just come off winning the 1992 finals against Portland. And so they go to practice with the Dream Team. Well, Clyde Drexler's on the team. And according to Charles Barkley, who, when I heard it, I was like, okay, that's Barkley talking. But then you hear it from others as well after that. According to Barkley, Clyde Drexler walks into the first practice with his shoes on the wrong feet. And Barkley, which I don't know how that's possible, okay, but Barkley attributes it to that Jordan was so in his head, he had him so screwed up from the finals that he didn't even know which foot to put which shoe on.
That's stupid.
Completely, right.
That's ridiculous. First of all, Drexler was the second best shooting guard in the NBA.
At that time. Yeah, at that time.
Yeah. So that's interesting. He was better than Reggie Miller. He was a lot better than Reggie Miller.
Way better than Reggie Miller.
And that's saying something because I don't think Clyde Drexler could dribble basketball.
Not with his left hand, for sure.
Yeah, not with his left hand. Even going left, he was using his right. He was straight out of the 60s in that way.
Yeah.
Not a great ball handler, but dude could bounce. The guy could shoot it a little bit. And that was he was probably bigger than most twos at the time.
6'7". Yeah. And then the last one, and I'll finish with this because there's a similar one with Kobe. Because I want to get to your story. Byron Scott tells the story where Chicago's coming to play in LA. Chicago shows up, and Jordan sees Byron Scott. He says, "Hey, B. Scott, I hear you're not playing tonight," because Byron Scott's ankle was hurt. Okay.
Yeah.
And Byron Scott, I'm down for this one, man. And Jordan looks at him and says, "Well, who's guarding me?" And Scott goes, "That'd probably be Anthony Peeler." Jordan's immediate response was 50.
Yeah.
He had 54, I think, in 3/4 of the game, something like that. Yeah. And to hear Byron Scott tell the story about what he told to Anthony Peeler, where he walked up to him, he said, "Look, AP, just letting you know, MJ's probably going to go for about 50 tonight. Okay. Just don't say anything to him.
Yeah.
Just don't say anything to him because we don't want him to get 70, right?"
Just try to stay out of the way. Just let him get his 50. Just try not to open your mouth or defend him or foul him or offend him in any way. For God's sakes, don't tell him good game or nice to meet you, right? Because he'll turn it on you. Yeah. All right, my last story. I've never heard this in my entire life. So I can't independently verify it, but I saw it on the internet, and it sounds true, and I saw it in more than one place, so we're going to go with it. There was a kid who grew up in Cuba. His parents and he defected into South Florida before his teenage years. He barely spoke any English. The kid's name was Al Cueto, Cueto. So kid from Cuba defects over here with his family, spoke almost no English whatsoever. Okay, when he came over in his like pre-high school years, pre-teen years, maybe early teenage years, 11, 12, 13. So very poor English, grew up in a poor Hispanic neighborhood, so never had to develop a mastery of the English language, went to a school with teachers that were bilingual, and the predominance of the other students in his class were Hispanic as well. So never really got forced to learn English, got through middle school, got all the way into high school, really not learning the English language or speaking it very well. Certainly no mastery of geography or anything like that in the United States. It was mostly other kids like him who had defected from Cuba into South Florida who went to this high school. He walked on to played high school basketball, was a pretty good player. Turned out to be 6'7", right? And at the time, that was pretty tall. This was back in, I think, in the late 60s. Yeah, probably late 60s. Walked on a basketball team called St. Gregory University, which I've never heard of, flourished. And then there he was coached by a Spanish-speaking coach. And so he never really needed to learn English to play on St. Gregory, transferred because he was flourishing to Tulsa University, a much better, bigger basketball program. And when he transferred, he was like discovered with a bunch of other Spanish-speaking kids. And so that was kind of like their move, not going international and bringing international recruits back in the 60s, but other Spanish-speaking kids, hey, come here together, play together for Tulsa, and you've got your buddies with you. So, again, got away with really not speaking great English as a Spanish-speaking kid, played for Tulsa. In one game during the regular season at Tulsa, his senior year, he performed so well that he caught the eye of a Philadelphia 76er scout who was there to watch somebody else. The scout came up to Al Cueto after the game, and again, not a lot of back and forth because the scout didn't speak Spanish, spoke English, and Cueto spoke Spanish. And so he basically made it very clear the Philadelphia 76ers are interested in you. We would like you after the season to come to Philadelphia and work out with our team. I guess back then you could just like bring kids in whenever you wanted to and work them out, and there was no rules or violations in the NBA. So the kid's like nods, he gets it. Okay, I understand. He's now a senior in college or whatever. So that summer he decided to do that. And so he didn't have an address for the Philadelphia 76ers. He just knew he needed to find the basketball court in Philadelphia. Well, he thought Philadelphia was in Florida. And so he asked the taxi driver to take him to the Miami airport and drop him off at the Miami airport, and then he would figure out how to get to this basketball court in Florida. And so he started asking the people around him, basketball, how do I get to the basketball court? They're like, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. They understood enough to know you're looking for a basketball court, but they're like, what basketball court? What are you even talking about? Well, one guy who did speak Spanish and a little bit of English understood, I need to find the basketball court. He looked at the kid. He's 6'7", so he must be looking for the Miami Floridians. That is the name of an ABA franchise in Miami at the time. And so he's like, I know where you're trying to get. I understand you. And he kind of works his way through it. Get in the car. I will drive you to the basketball court. And so the kid's thinking, okay, good. He's going to drive me to the Philadelphia 76ers basketball facility. Right. So they get in the car. They show up. It just so happens when the guy drops him off at the facility, the Miami Floridians are in the middle of a practice session. Okay. And so kid gets out, walks into the gym, says, I'm here for the tryout. The coach is like, all right, you're 6'7". I don't know who sent you or why you're here. Maybe one of our scouts, advanced scouts, said come practice or whatever. Throws him into the practice session. He does great. He does fantastic. And he's like, man, we're interested. And, of course, back then there's 10 rounds of drafting. So they're like, we'd love to draft you. The problem is we don't have enough draft picks And so the guy makes a call from the Miami Floridians, makes a call to the Seattle Supersonics and says, look, there's a kid we want to draft. We've already got our draft slots kind of filled out. We know what direction we're going. We don't have a place to put him, but we want him on our roster. Can you do us a favor? Draft him in Seattle, and then we'll trade you one of our already rostered players after the fact that you pick one of the players that we have, and then you send him to us in a trade. And so that's what ended up happening. And he got drafted by Seattle or whatever, but ended up getting traded to Miami. He gets a jersey delivered to his house in the mail, and he gets the jersey out, and it says Miami on it, and he's confused about it. So one of his former Tulsa teammates is like, dude, you just got drafted by Miami. And so when he shows up down there, he finally, for the first time, realizes, I'm not in Philadelphia. I'm not in Pennsylvania. I'm playing for Miami, a completely different team that never scouted him beforehand. He just happened to show up at their practice facility and got drafted by them. So that is a little example of how maybe speaking good English is crucial to live in America and vice versa, probably for living in a Hispanic country. But the guy got drafted by a team that never saw him, didn't know anything about him. He just happened to show up and walk into one of their practices and start hooping.
And you probably wanted to play with the 76ers at that point.
Probably. My odds are, because neither one of us had heard of the Miami Floridians. Well, I had never even heard of that ABA franchise. No. I think there was a couple ABA franchises that were just a couple years here and there, like the Conquistadors and whatnot. Like, that would have been another great story. Wilt was the player coach for the Conquistadors.
Yes. Knew that. Yeah. That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah, Al Cueto is his name. So
I didn't know if you were going to finish with that was Wilt's third alias.
That was He was also a 7'1" black Hispanic guy, Al Cueto, and he also averaged 50 for the Floridians. No, that's my last story. So that's a good one to end on. Yep. What else? Anything else we need to talk about before we sign off and get ready for the next episode? What's going on in the NBA, man? Any surprises?
West
I got the Nuggets to win the West on FanDuel, man. I'm looking good. I'm feeling good about that.
West is wide open. I'm starting to question Golden State. I mean, I know Steph just got back and it's not even the All-Star break, but it's a weird feel to that. Like, it's like I feel like the window's closing, but of course I thought that before, right? So I'm gonna give it. I'm not gonna believe it until I see it, kind of deal.
Yeah, I think it's starting to take shape a little bit in both conferences, Jonathan. In the East, because the Bucks just can't get healthy, but in the West, Nuggets and Grizzlies are tied. There's a 4.5 game gap.
Yeah.
And the team that's 4.5 back is the Pelicans, and they don't look to be closing a gap anytime soon with no Zion and no Ingram.
We missed on Memphis, man. I'm not saying that they're going to win.
I missed worst. I mean, I literally thought they were playing.
Yeah, I guess Jaren Jackson's a little better than I thought. I still,
you know why? Why we let I let my bias affect my prognostication. I hate Dylan Brooks and I hate Jaren Jackson. I shouldn't say hate. I dislike those two players. Right. And I think I disparaged them with my heart, and it led to my mind. And I'm like, well, Ja's by himself. And I kind of, I just kind of bang a little bit too much.
Yeah. I just didn't think they were that good. I really didn't think those dudes were that good, but I guess
Brandon Clark plays hard. Brandon Clark's awesome. I mean, he's everything every team would want except tall. But he plays his ass off. I mean, he plays power forward. He's like 6'6", 6'7", whatever.
But think about what you just said. Like, you just mentioned Brandon Clark in a fourth or fifth, type order. Dude, Brandon Clark's not the fourth best player on a championship team. You wouldn't have thought before the season.
They're not a championship team.
Well, I know
I'm not going to go that far. I'm not going to go that far.
They could go to the Western Conference Finals.
Well, let's see what happens when we get to the playoffs and people are allowed to molest a 175-pound superstar named Ja Morant. We'll see what happens when
he went off before he got hurt.
We'll see. We'll see.
So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see for sure. I still, Phoenix. Oh man, are they dead in the water without Booker? And Chris Paul is a shell, dude. It happened. It hit.
We knew it was going to happen. Father Time never loses, man. We knew it was going to happen. LeBron's still shaking it off, but Chris Paul is not. Yeah, Phoenix, you can scratch. Good Lord, Phoenix is in 12th. They're 10 back.
I know it's bad too, and I think Booker's a great player, but he ain't that freaking good.
They're 2 back of 6th.
Yeah.
But they're in 12th. But the West is still muddy down there. But I think at the top, I think those two teams are separating. And look, here's the deal. It's just health. Yeah. It's just health. I mean, the other teams behind them are really good teams. The Pelicans are injured. If Zion and Brandon Ingram had played 90% of the games, they may be in first. Yep. If the Maverick, the Mavericks, they are what they are. The Clippers, I mean, think of Kawhi and Paul George. And again, I know this is a dream. If they had played every game, they would not be 8 back. Golden State, they would not be 8.5 back. Jazz are just overachieving still. The T-Wolves, if healthy, we'll never know because, no Cat. And now Gobert looks to have a groin strain. And our guy Naz Reid's actually played really, really well. He's actually turned into a really good pro, Jonathan.
He's a good pro, dude.
He's a fringe starter NBA player. I mean, he's playing backup right now, and he's going to start while Gobert sits with his groin to get it right. But, dude, he's a fringe NBA starter power forward.
We'll finish with this. Most entertaining conference finals, in your opinion, are who versus who? And I'll let you take the East, and I'll take the West. Entertaining.
Not two best teams. Entertaining.
Well, it could be the two best teams because of that.
Well, I mean, you want me to choose the game that I would like to watch the most.
Yeah.
This is a hard one because I would always choose the Bucks to be in a conference finals because it's hard for me to extract myself from that,
Yeah.
I mean, I would have a healthy Nets in there.
Yep.
I would probably say Nets Celtics, man.
Brooklyn, Philly would be the most fun one to watch, I think. Not just the Ben Simmons thing, but
it would be fun to watch what Embiid does to newly discovered Defensive Player of the Year candidate Nick Claxton, who weighs 207 pounds. That would be interesting to watch. It would also be interesting to watch Harden, Tobias Harris, or Tyrese Maxey guard Kevin Durant.
Yes.
Good luck with that.
And then the other one guard Kyrie Irving. Yeah,
that's right. I would much rather the Tyrese Maxey guarding Kyrie Irving is at least he could create some friction. The other matchup is like lights out. I mean, that's a matchup where if we could bet on FanDuel that Embiid and Durant were going to average 40 for a series, I would bet on both of those and parlay it together because that shit would happen. Man, that's tough to say in the East. I don't know. What do you think? You know what? I say that. I like watching the Cavs play, man. I love watching Garland. I love watching Jarrett. Jarrett Allen is straight up Artis Gilmore, but I love watching him play because he plays so damn hard. He just does everything he's told. He never shows any emotion whatsoever, positive or negative. Nope. Like he is a freaking cyborg, and I love him.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, the Knicks are pretty good. RJ Barrett's not terrible, and he's the clear-cut third best player.
No, they're not bad. But again, they're at best win a first-round playoff series. That's it. I mean, that's the best that they can do.
Can they?
Yeah.
I don't even think they can.
If they can, I'm saying at best they'll win a first-round playoff series. I don't think they can though because of where they'll be seated, so it won't matter. I think in the West, the most entertaining one. And I know the fact that I'm not including Golden State is going to piss people off, but I just don't think it's
Nuggets Mavericks. It's Nuggets Mavericks.
I disagree. I think it's Nuggets Pelicans. If
everybody, you're right. Healthy Pelicans. You're right. It might be.
I think it's Nuggets Pelicans, and that would be a lot of fun. Because look, give Luka another dude. Yeah, they're definitely in there.
Sure.
Well,
you never know. Something may happen. I mean, we got a trade deadline coming up, and that's going to definitely form the foundation of some of these shows coming up. Is trade rumors and or trades that happen, and we're going to talk about that stuff and how that shifts the power paradigm in the NBA. People don't realize how much it would shift the power if Zach LaVine ends up on the Mavericks. And that's stuff that they're talking about, like weird stuff like that. There's always some trade that was not even on the radar that happens, and you're like, oh my God. Like that Aaron Gordon to Nuggets trade was a weird one. Like there's always some weird trade like that. It's going to be an interesting trade season for sure, because I think this is the first year where there's like 14 teams that think they can make the conference finals.
Yeah.
Usually it's three or four in each conference, and two of them are clear-cut favorites. This is weird, man. This is really weird.
Yeah, it is. It's a load management. It's a byproduct of load management, a byproduct of injuries, byproduct of all that stuff, and it just is what it is. It's the most parity that you will see in the NBA ever. It's his closest thing to the NFL that it's ever been from a standpoint.
I agree. I agree. The NBA parity right now is super impressive. I think it's just from the depth of franchise type talent.
Well, that's the other thing, because even if everybody were healthy, it would still be incredibly.
I think it would too. Yeah, I think it would. I think it might even be more so. I think that the lack of health is the reason we're seeing some separation with the Celtics, and the reason we're seeing some separation from the Grizzlies and the Nuggets, because those three teams are, by all accounts, pretty damn healthy. I mean, you missed Robert Williams, but Robert Williams is your fourth or fifth best player.
Right.
You know, the Nuggets are missing nobody that I know of.
No.
And the Grizzlies are missing nobody that I know of other than John Morant here and there. And they miss Bane for a little bit. But, you know, again, the Bucks are playing without a bunch of all-NBA and all-star guys. And that's a freaking problem.
And an unhealthy best player in the world.
Yeah.
You know,
well, he's out now. I mean, he's missed, I think, 3 in a row now. At least 2, maybe 3. I don't know. We'll see. I thought they were going to lose another one the other night against the Pacers. Anyway, that's cool. That's it. That's another episode. Thank you guys for watching. Raise up your bedazzled handbag. Do you have don't you have, didn't you, I thought you had like a carrying satchel. Oh, there you go. There it is. All right. Thank y'all for watching. Keep collecting. Stay positive in the hobby. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't. Hit the like button. It helps us. And peace.